I really think that we've just been able to encapsulate the amount of difference in not only in my voice, but in the kind of person I've become over these past 2.5 years.
What happens when a shy, bullied teenager with a once-in-a-generation voice storms Britain's Got Talent, delivers a performance that leaves judges speechless, and still comes second to a dancing dog? Today, we're unpacking the real story of Jonathan Antoine, the opera prodigy who went viral overnight, lost the crown to a novelty act, and slowly disappeared from the mainstream spotlight. From bullying and heartbreak to transformation and a life-changing diagnosis, this story is way deeper than you think. The BGT moment that changed everything, March 24, 2012. The date that would change Jonathan Antoine's life forever. At just 17 years old, he walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage alongside Charlotte Giaconelli, 16. They were Jonathan and Charlotte, a classical crossover duo nobody expected to take seriously. And honestly, the judges didn't. When Simon Cowell first laid eyes on Jonathan, nervous, visibly overweight, dressed like any other teenager, he made a comment that would haunt him. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, barely hiding his skepticism. The other judges looked equally unimpressed. It was painful to watch. Here was a kid who'd been bullied his whole life, now facing rejection on national television. Then, Jonathan opened his mouth. The first notes of the prayer silenced the room. Cowell's jaw literally could have been picked up from the floor. Amanda Holden's eyes went wide. The audience erupted before the duo even finished the first verse. This wasn't just good. This was extraordinary. Jonathan's tenor voice soared through the auditorium with the power and emotion of someone 3 times his age. When they finished, the judges couldn't contain themselves. Simon Cowell, the same man who'd dismissed Jonathan seconds earlier, was now comparing him to Luciano Pavarotti. Pavarotti, one of the greatest tenors of all time. That was a complete and utter shock. Jonathan, you are one of the most amazing talents I've heard. The performance went viral instantly. Millions of views with news coverage worldwide. Jonathan went from bullied high school kid to international opera sensation overnight. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Simon suggested during the auditions that Jonathan should dump Charlotte and go solo. Can you believe that? On national television, he basically told Jonathan his partner was holding him back. The duo advanced to the semi-finals on May 7, performing Caruso by Lucio Dalla, and then made it to the finals on May 12. They performed The Prayer again and received another standing ovation. Everyone thought they had it in the bag, but they didn't win. They came in second to Ashley and Pudsey, a dancing dog act. Yeah, you read that right. A dancing dog beat them. Jonathan later described the moment saying he felt the organs sinking, but didn't cry on stage. Was coming second really the end? Or perhaps it was just the beginning of something even bigger. The million-pound deal and sudden stardom. Here's the thing about coming second on Britain's Got Talent. Sometimes it's better than winning. The day after the finale, Simon Cowell was already in negotiations. By May 13, 2012, it was confirmed. Jonathan and Charlotte had signed a £1 million recording contract with Psycho, Cowell's record label. Let that sink in. They didn't win the competition, but they won the jackpot. Their debut album, Together, dropped on September 24, 2012, in the UK and October 30 in the US. It was an instant hit, reaching number 5 in the UK charts and selling over 250 copies. The album featured classical selections, arias, and that now iconic performance of The Prayer. Critics praised Jonathan's miraculous talent and his voice was described as having a velvety, creamy sound that is quite unique. The success was overwhelming. Documentary crews followed them around. ITV gave them their own special showing their France and Italy tours. Simon Cowell even apologized on camera for suggesting they split up during the show. It looked like a fairy tale come true. But behind the scenes, cracks were already forming. Their second album, Perhaps Love, was released on October 14, 2013, reaching number 5 in the charts. Charlotte described it as more diverse, including covers of modern songs like Florence and The Machines' You Got the Love and Falling Slowly from Once. Notably, they recorded some solo tracks on this album, a sign of things to come, perhaps? The tension was real. Jonathan wanted to focus on classical opera. Charlotte was drawn to musical theater. Neither was wrong. They just wanted different things. And when you're teenagers thrust into international stardom, navigating those differences isn't easy. Then came the bombshell. But would their partnership survive the pressure? Or was the fairy tale about to shatter? The devastating split that shocked fans. February 2nd, 2014. The announcement that broke millions of hearts. Jonathan and Charlotte were splitting up. After selling more than 250,000 albums together, after becoming household names, after building a fan base called the Fantwains, who adored them, they were done. Both had been offered solo record deals by Sony Classical, and they were taking them. The statement they released tried to put a positive spin on it, saying they've had an exciting journey together ever since high school, and to come second on BGT and sell over 250,000 albums was wild. On top of that, to be offered solo record deals by Sony Classical was simply the most exciting thing ever. But the media wasn't buying the happy narrative. Some outlets suggested Charlotte had dumped Jonathan. Fans were devastated. The duo that had captured hearts worldwide was finished. Years later, Jonathan opened up about the real reasons. Charlotte raised up my confidence to the level I could go on BGT, and we made something beautiful, he explained. Neither of us had been ensemble artists. We loved solo performances, so it was the natural evolution of the thing. There's only so much a crossover classical duo can actually do without starting to reinvent the whole thing. At the point I had the necessary confidence and understood myself a bit more, I felt it was time to make the leap. Translation: Simon Cowell had been right all along. Jonathan was meant to be a solo artist. But here's where it gets messy. After the split, Jonathan and Charlotte barely spoke. In a 2017 appearance on Lorraine, Jonathan admitted, "We don't get to speak very often, but that's just the nature of the industry. When you're grafting, you don't really get the time to speak to your friends." Charlotte insisted at the time that ending their musical partnership didn't mean they'd stop seeing each other altogether. But that's exactly what happened. They lost contact. Two people who'd been best friends since 2006, who'd built their dreams together, were now strangers. The rumors flew. Were they ever romantically involved? The chemistry on stage had been undeniable, but both have confirmed they were never a couple, only professional singing partners and friends. Charlotte even called Jonathan her brother at one point. Still, fans shipped them hard, and the romance speculation never fully died. Could Jonathan survive on his own? Would the voice that made him famous be enough without Charlotte by his side? The boy who found his voice. But to truly understand Jonathan's resilience, we need to rewind. Long before the standing ovations and million-pound record deals, Jonathan Antoine was just another bullied kid trying to survive. Born January 13, 1995 in Hainault, Essex, to a police inspector, father, and housewife mother, Jonathan's childhood was marked by relentless torment that started when he was just 4 years old. Can you imagine? 4 years old and already being targeted. The bullying was brutal, constant, and soul-crushing. Kids can be cruel, but what Jonathan endured went beyond typical playground meanness. He was mocked for his weight, his appearance, his very existence. The attacks were so severe that young Jonathan turned to the only things that brought him comfort: food and music. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. At age 11, something magical happened. Jonathan enrolled at West Hatch High School in Chigwell and met singing coach Jenny Ewington. She saw something in this bullied, broken boy that nobody else did. Raw, untapped talent that would one day make the world stop and listen. She became his savior, working with him on pieces like Where Is Love from Oliver and Panis Angelicus. His voice was so remarkable that students quietly started referring to him as the boy with the incredible voice. By 14, Jonathan was auditioning for the 4 major music conservatories in London. And guess what? He was accepted by all of them. He chose the prestigious Royal Academy of Music's junior program. At the 2010 Stratford and East London Music Festival, he performed Bring Him Home from Les Miserables and scored an unprecedented 98 out of 100, the highest score in the festival's history. The boy who was bullied for being different was now being celebrated for his gift. But Jonathan wasn't done surprising people. In 2011, he sang Ave Maria at the Royal Festival Hall in London. The scared kid was becoming a confident performer, and the world was starting to take notice. That foundation, built on years of torment, self-discovery, and musical refuge, would prove essential when facing the challenges ahead. So with that background, could Jonathan truly thrive as a solo artist? Would those early struggles prepare him for the pressure? The solo rise of a reluctant superstar. October 13, 2014. Jonathan's debut solo album, Tenore, Italian for tenor, hit the shelves. The pressure was immense. Could he deliver without Charlotte? Would fans accept him as a solo artist? The answer? A resounding yes. Tenore shot straight to #1 on the Classical Artist album chart, making Jonathan the youngest tenor ever to achieve that feat. It also cracked the UK Pop Top 15. Critics raved. One reviewer wrote, "Here is a new star on the vocal scene, and his first solo album attests to his miraculous talent." The album featured his powerful rendition of Panis Angelicus and showcased Jonathan's range and emotional depth. That same year, Placido Domingo, yes, the Placido Domingo, personally invited Jonathan to perform as his guest at the iTunes Festival 2014. Imagine that, one of the 3 tenors giving his stamp of approval. Jonathan also performed at the 2014 Muhammad Ali Celebrity Fight Night across Arizona, California, and Florida. He was touring America, building an international fan base, proving he could stand on his own. His second album, Believe, dropped on August 19, 2016, featuring classical arias by Puccini, Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and original collaborations. The album had another source of inspiration, Michelle Doucet, a Canadian waitress Jonathan met online. He called her the light of my life and credited her as the muse behind the album. Then came 2020 and Going the Distance, a concept album recorded with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, filmed in Toronto with special guests. It became his first U.S. television special and aired on PBS. The concert featured his first ever recording of Nessun Dorma, the aria from Puccini's Turandot that's considered one of the most challenging pieces in the classical repertoire. Jonathan nailed it. His voice had matured, deepened, and gained even more emotional power. By this point, Jonathan had built an impressive solo discography and was regularly touring the UK and US. He'd proven himself not just as half of a duo, but as a standalone talent. The boy Simon Cowell had doubted was now filling concert halls worldwide. But behind the sold-out shows and chart-topping albums, Jonathan was fighting battles nobody could see. The darkness behind the voice. Success doesn't erase trauma. And for Jonathan Antoine, the scars of childhood bullying ran deep. In interviews over the years, Jonathan has been remarkably candid about his struggles with depression. The years of torment, being mocked, physically threatened, made to feel worthless, had taken their toll. Around the time of his BGT debut, he was diagnosed with acute depression. The condition was so severe that it caused him to cancel a major performance at the Royal Albert Hall. Imagine having to pull out of one of the most prestigious venues in the world because your mental health won't allow you to perform. The pressure was crushing. Jonathan also opened up about a particularly toxic relationship he'd been in around age 18. His girlfriend at the time had serious mental health issues and unhealthy coping behaviors. She struggled with harmful coping behaviors and didn't try to hide them. For someone already struggling with his own mental health, being in that relationship was devastating. He later shared that her struggles were never hidden, and while the relationship eventually ended, it left deep emotional scars. Through it all, Jonathan relied heavily on his family. His police inspector, Father John, his mother, Tracy, and his older sister, Charlotte, not his former singing partner. They became his constant support system, showing up to his performances and backing him every step of the way. But Jonathan didn't just suffer in silence. He became a mental health advocate, speaking openly about his depression and joining awareness campaigns. He wanted to use his platform to help others facing similar struggles. He also co-authored children's books, including Jonathan and the Porcupine, focused on anti-bullying messages. The boy who'd been bullied was now helping other kids understand they're not alone. And then came the weight issue. Jonathan had struggled with his weight his entire life, using food as comfort during his darkest times. Around 2018 to 2019, he decided enough was enough. Managing a thyroid condition and armed with new determination, Jonathan embarked on a serious weight loss journey. Was losing weight the answer, or was there something deeper Jonathan still needed to discover about himself? The diagnosis that changed everything. April 2nd, 2022. Shortly after his 27th birthday, Jonathan received a diagnosis that would recontextualize his entire life: autism spectrum disorder. On Autism Awareness Day 2024, Jonathan went public, sharing on Instagram, "I got my diagnosis in 2022, not long after my 27th birthday." The recontextualization of a life already lived is a scary thing to reckon with. Suddenly, so much made sense. The social struggles, the intense focus on music, the way he processed the world differently, the challenges in relationships. It wasn't that something was wrong, his brain just worked differently. Jonathan's autism diagnosis helped explain why the bullying had affected him so profoundly, why relationships had been challenging, why he'd always felt slightly out of step with the world. It was liberating and terrifying. Understanding himself better meant he could help others understand themselves too. But the transformation wasn't just internal. Jonathan's physical appearance was about to shock everyone. The dramatic transformation. Between 2020 and 2024, Jonathan underwent one of the most dramatic physical transformations in recent entertainment history. We're talking about losing over 70 pounds. Some sources say up to 120 pounds. The change was stunning. The transformation happened gradually through consistent lifestyle changes. Walking 10,000 steps every day. He's missed that goal only twice, managing his thyroid condition and fundamentally changing his relationship with food. Jonathan said he felt stronger and healthier than he had in 10 years, explaining that the change came from finally choosing discipline and intention where he once struggled. By 2024, Jonathan had dropped to around 210 pounds. Photos showed him with his signature curly hair, but a dramatically slimmer face and body. He looked healthier, more confident, more comfortable in his own skin. The transformation wasn't about meeting anyone else's standards. It was about his health. The commitment to walking 10,000 steps daily became almost meditative. That discipline, the same discipline he'd brought to his vocal training, was now applied to his physical health. And his fans? They were thrilled. Comment after comment praised not just his appearance, but his honesty, his journey, his willingness to share the struggles alongside the victories. Where does that leave Jonathan Antoine today? What's next for the tenor who's survived it all? Where is Jonathan Antoine now? As of January 2026, Jonathan is entering what he calls a powerful new era. In January, he released All of Me, a stunning reimagining of John Legend's hit, showcasing both his classical training and contemporary flair. The single is from his upcoming album, Speaking to You, featuring tracks like Sound of Silence and Impossible Dream. He's been teasing the project on social media and in live streams with his devoted fan twins. His Christmas album, Christmas Land, was released in December 2024. His estimated net worth sits at $4 million, earned through album sales, concerts, and TV appearances. Not bad for the kid who was told he'd never amount to anything. And what about Charlotte? She transitioned to musical theater, appearing in West End productions including Sweet Charity and Heathers the Musical. The two rarely, if ever, speak. Michelle Doucet, Jonathan's girlfriend who inspired Believe? The relationship ended, though Jonathan has kept details private. A documentary about Jonathan's life, Beyond the High Sea, has been mentioned as being in development. Jonathan continues to advocate for mental health awareness, neurodiversity acceptance, and anti-bullying initiatives. In recent Instagram posts, he looks genuinely happy, comfortable in his own skin, in a way he never was as a teenager. Jonathan Antoine's story isn't about fame. It's about survival, growth, and refusing to be broken. From the bullied 4-year-old to the viral BGT sensation, from the devastating split with Charlotte to his triumphant solo career, from battling depression to discovering his autism, from transforming his physical health to embracing his authentic self, his journey is one of constant evolution and remarkable resilience. Jonathan didn't just endure it all, he thrived. Every struggle sharpened his voice and strengthened his spirit. So the next time you see Jonathan Antoine perform, remember, you're not just watching a singer. You're watching a survivor, an advocate, a man who refused to let the world's cruelty define him. And that's what really happened to Jonathan Antoine from BGT. If his journey moved you, smash like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. Because stories like this, they deserve to be heard.